Item 3, public appearance and citizens' comments. There's no one in the gallery, so on to item 4, approval of consent agenda.
So move. Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 5, new business. A, consideration, discussion, application for land division for a certified survey map and extraterritorial plat jurisdiction for N 8250 Marty Road. Nobody appeared last night, so we tabled it till the next meeting.
You need a motion for us to table the board until such time as the ETZ.
Sure.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item B, consideration, discussion, application for land division by preliminary plat in extraterritorial plat jurisdiction, Kubley Road. I'm not gonna read off the parcel.
Yeah.
I'm handing out an additional document for you all. So the ETZ reviewed this last night at their meeting and did make a recommendation. And so I handed out the minutes of that meeting because it's very detailed into what the recommendation is. But if you look on page 38, you'll see Mark Roffers provided a memo with some recommendations, and then basically the ETZ took that memo and took out parts of the recommendation. So that's what the minutes highlight. So they did recommend approval, and I know Mike has several comments he wanted to make.
Well, I mean, are the comments from Mark Rofer's letter enforceable for our ordinances, which is why it's under our village review?
Yep.
So why wouldn't we want to keep those comments in that were removed?
It's up to the village board. Would be going against what the ETZ recommended to the board.
Okay.
So I guess that's up to the village board on that.
Okay.
Where is we have wording for the ETZ's recommendation here?
Yes, so the ETZ on that separate handout I gave you.
Okay.
It's the last item on the front page. Item, sorry.
Is this
Yeah.
the right one?
So
Two.
under the discussion and potential recommendation of its large preliminary plat, there's 1 and 2. Those, I summarized the recommendation from the ETZ there.
Yeah, and they kept 1A, B, and C. They removed item A. They removed item B about the floodplain, but there aren't any floodplain limits, but I have questions about shoreline zoning. They also removed item D, protection of mature woodlands, and they removed provisions to minimize visibility of future homes from public streets. But they kept in the utility easements, the features to meet plat submittal requirements, a deed restriction for the 20-foot strip, and they kept in the note regarding the Wisconsin farm right to farm law. So if you look at Mark Rofer's letter, well, that's a little different.
So at last night's meeting, the ETZ and the applicant were all
Yep,
got to go with this.
the applicant and the ETZ discussed Mark's recommendations and basically made their own recommendation that took out several sections of his recommendation.
Which sections were probably not really pertinent to. I'm getting the feeling that maybe the ETZ didn't feel they were pertinent to the situation.
There's definitely been some disagreement between the town and village on what is and is not pertinent, and our attorney reviewed Mark's memo and said that they were pertinent. So it's just a matter of whether we want to enforce that or not, I guess.
So what would be questionable? regarding Mark's recommendations.
What would be questionable?
Yeah, that's not included in the ETZ recommendation.
So, Mark's full recommendation is in the packet,
Right.
but the ETZ took out the following. They took out adjustments to lot boundaries such that all lots aside from lot 4 have frontage on a public street. That was a major one because, 2 lots don't have frontage on a public street in this, preliminary plat. They also took out floodplain limits and shoreland zoning boundaries. They took out provisions for protection of mature woodlands and 20% plus slopes within the plat, which may include disturbance restrictions per town ordinance or otherwise. They took out provisions to minimize visibility of future homes from public streets, which may include deep building setbacks from Kugley roads and tree preservation within said setback area. Yeah, those are the items that they said you don't have to follow that in the final plat.
And their reasoning was they didn't feel it was necessary.
The attorney that was with Bob Talarczyk outlined that kind of their case for why they didn't think they should be included. And Roger, if you remember certain ones, but for example, I think they stated, so I think one of the big ones to think about is the adjustment to lot boundaries to not have frontage on a public street. And they argued that previous plats have been allowed to do that, and so they should be allowed to do that.
They argue that Harold Holmes has got 2 lots out there that do not front a public street.
Do they front a
Private.
do they front a private street?
So as far as having access off of right, a private street, I'm sorry.
Okay,
And we approved that one.
well, that was one of the questions I had. What, if we're gonna go this road of allowing lots without public access, let's make this access easement a private outlot reserved for private access to these lots with a public utility easement within that outlot and a public access easement or ingress egress for emergency service vehicles. That way it's clearly defined that the police have a right to, and fire trucks and ambulances, they have a right to use that private street for access when needed. And the other question I had is, there's nobody here to answer questions. I've got questions about whether or not anybody has talked to the fire department or emergency service providers about the viability of this access point and the proposed access to Kugley Road provides for adequate sight distance for safe entry and exit to and from Kugley Road. And if they are able to get down this access easement, should there be a fire, and have the ability to turn around and get out, because typically when you have this, you have a turnaround, like a 60-foot or whatever, to allow for fire trucks to get in and out of the site. And the same goes for lot 1. I mean, if you drive by there, I don't think there's a single bit of frontage for lot 1 to Kugley Road that has a safe entry and exit point, because it is so steep and people can fly in over. I don't think there's a safe driveway. And I don't know if anybody's even looked into that, or whether or not this exists proposed, because you come down that hill to that driveway, and there's not a whole lot of time.
Where is that in regards to Karen's home?
that is their existing driveway.
That's toughy.
I know, you
That
come
is a
over, I
tough-
drove it tonight.
So would it be like an easement? These properties would be like an easement off of the public road? Is that what this would be?
What are you talking about?
Like for these lots, would they be on?
They would-
Driving road, would it be an easement or would it be?
It would be an outlot, a private outlot reserved for private road purposes. That way, you're not subjecting, I mean, right now it's part of lot 5.
Right,
you're subjecting the owner of lot 5 to taxes for that strip of land.
Yep.
Potentially maintenance, repair, snow plowing, blah, blah, blah. Where if you create a private outlot,
Yep.
you can have a homeowners association just for that outlot. They can share the taxes, share the maintenance, share the access, share the snow plowing, all that stuff. And I would also, with regard to lot 4, I have questions. I drove down that driveway too, and I looked on the DNR's website, and there are wetland indicators. And there's not been a wetland delineation done. And if the DNR, I mean, if this was Dane County, you'd have to have a wetland delineation done, and you'd have to comply with 30-foot setbacks, no grading, and 75-foot setbacks, no structures. If the DNR, I mean, if they do this and get it recorded and they don't have a wetland delineation done until such time as somebody comes to buy a lot 4, and that's considered a prime wetland, you're gonna have that 30-foot setback. You're not gonna be, you won't be granted access because you have basically 15 feet from that meander corner to that 20-foot strip. So that access is garbage. And they would still have to get a driveway permit in the town of New Glarus for a driveway that's another, what, 1,000 feet? I mean, you look at sheet 2. I just don't see how you're gonna want to pay for grading of the whole thing.
Where is
And I-
Part of that,
Karen's
part
house?
of that
Right here.
little strip
It's
of
in lot 5.
4 is in Exeter Township.
Huh?
Part of that little, there's just
I-
a little piece that's in Exeter
I
Township.
don't think you can do that. I've never been asked to do that. I've never had to deal with it. But that's another question I have. If they want to keep, I would make that 20-foot strip a private outlot. That way lots aren't crossing municipal and township boundaries. Because if we were doing a plat in the town of Madison, let's say, that 20-foot strip was in the town of Madison and the rest was in the city of Madison, you would be required to annex that into the city, so it's all in one municipality. And my thoughts are, you would create a separate outlot, a private outlot for the purposes of private access to and from lot 4. And then you could put a note right on the plat that states that the outlot and lot 4 are to remain under common ownership. A deed restriction right on the plat, and then it's always there, and you can use it for 4-wheeling and whatever.
It was brought up, but they claimed that they figured nothing will ever be done with that, but you never know, and they admitted that.
Right.
Well,
Can't-
that's why be safe. You got them in 2 different townships, have one strip in the town of Exeter, that outlot, but have them be joined by a deed restriction. And that way you're avoiding any sort of an issue with crossing a township boundary with the same lot.
Mike, what happens to those lots in terms of that forest that's been
Oh,
established?
exactly.
Are they gonna plow that under, and does that violate, my question is the ETZ, I mean, I know it's our municipal code about where is it, the environmental corridor?
Yeah, and their village comprehensive plan right here.
The village comprehensive plan and 20% slopes, provisions for protection of mature woodlands, that's all mature woodlands, the
Oh,
whole.
yeah. They planted that when I was in high school.
Yeah.
I remember
the
them
whole section.
doing that whole thing. And if you look, I mean, you look at sheet 2. You're never gonna develop this part of lot 1. You've got this whole ditch here. You're never gonna be able to cross the ditch. Your buildable area is right here for lot 3. And lot 4, I mean, you'll have more along, you could maybe swing the access easement down to here for lot 4.
So what would they do with all that? Would they just destroy all those trees? I know you're getting tax credits for it, for having it established.
I don't see, I mean,
Well, they can do whatever they want.
Right,
that's their, that's,
right.
I'm not gonna get into that, but there's gonna be a whole lot of clearing to get
Is
into this.
that, but does that violate our
Well, that's kind
municipal,
of,
our code?
I don't know.
Where it says, I can't remember where it was here.
So yeah, Mark advocated for,
Provisions of protection of mature
Yeah.
woodlands.
which provisions, as they pointed out last night, is not really, it doesn't tell them what exactly to do, but he was looking for them to provide some kind of plan or assurance that, yeah, these protections would be in place. Yeah, and I guess I'll just add further, there's a lot of what Mike is bringing up, which are very valid points, but are a lot of the kind of technical aspect of reviewing the plat is under the town.
Yeah.
And so our focus as the kind of overseer of the ETZ, and Mark kind of outlines this, our purview is focused on land suitability, extraterritorial land division, specifically looking at rural character design standards, and then the block and lot design standards. And that's what looks at the every lot shall front or abut on a public street. So Mike and I talked about providing several recommendations, but we can't condition them to do some of these things because it'll go against what the town already provided.
Yeah, we got in trouble once for that CSM review.
So,
But-
but everything that Mark recommended is under your purview. So all of the things, adjustments to lot boundaries, floodplain limits and shoreline zoning, provisions for protection of mature woodlands, those are under your purview. But if you change what was recommended by it's a decision whether you want to change what was recommended by ETC.
But if we change it, then we're gonna have to go back to another ETZ committee meeting.
Nope, they just recommend to the village board. So you don't have to follow their recommendation. Kind of like the plan commission recommends to you all.
But we have, so in other words, we can make changes
Mhm.
and they wouldn't even have to adhere to them then, right?
Who wouldn't have to,
The builders or the township?
Township,
if you,
We can't override the township.
so I mean, some of these I don't think would be overriding them. It would just be additional requirements that the applicant would have to follow.
and it's within our right to do that as part of the ETC.
Well, if it's in our ordinances, I
Right,
mean, Mark
that's right.
Rofer spent the time putting it all together.
Yeah, I mean, I guess some of these like adjustments to lot boundaries for the frontage on a public street, I guess that would require them to make changes that might interfere with what the
Yeah.
town said.
And maybe that's us getting around. I think by recommending they make those private outlots for
Mhm.
street purposes, that would allow us to go along with their recommendation. But still, it's a road, it's just a
Right.
private road, and they
Right,
have frontage along the private road.
yeah,
So I think if we can require or recommend frontage along the private outlot,
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
think we can get around that one.
yeah,
But they could go against that.
they don't have to follow it.
No, they don't have to follow anything. I just think we should be on record of,
Yeah.
I think the village board should be on record for some of this
Yeah.
stuff.
No, I don't.
And I'd like to go over the points, our recommendations, so that we are on record as saying, I think this is in the best interest of the developer,
Mhm.
the buyer,
Mhm.
the village and the township for creating something that is well thought out and makes sense instead of just,
So what would
assuming.
be the process? Get that typed up, we go over it again and then send it on?
I don't know. I mean, we could just go ahead and make the recommendations since they're not here to answer any of the questions.
Yeah,
It's a recommendation only anyway.
Mhm.
I think you're gonna have to read it out though, Mike.
Well, just if it makes sense to you. I mean, I would recommend having a wetland delineation done when the growing season starts.
Are you making an official motion?
He has it
No,
written
no, I'm
out,
just,
too.
Oh,
I just,
okay.
if you agree with them, I would.
I just a minute. I agree with Warren. I think we need to write this out rather than doing it on the fly right now.
Yeah,
Yes,
Well, we could table it
Yeah,
and then have them come back and answer
I think in light of
questions.
what you're saying,
I agree.
I personally, the only thing I'm concerned with is the access
Yeah.
that you brought up and the emergency services thing. The rest of it is all
Well,
pie
it
in the
is what
sky,
it- yeah,
but even so, if you want to make these recommendations, if we want to make these recommendations.
Well,
I
so you
think
have
we
time to
should
look at
take
it.
the time to do it. So we
Absolutely.
can look at it and make sure it's what we want. If we're gonna, we're gonna, either way, we're going to probably offend somebody, so we might as well do it right.
well,
As far as, I mean, a lot of it is just, the forest land management. That's
well,
bullshit. We don't have any control over what they do with that stuff.
but some of it is really important from a
But, and
access.
as far as the roads go, the access and emergency services,
Mhm.
I mean, really, that's up to the township.
Well, it should have
If
been in the
not the
comments.
county.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is normally
absolutely.
the county's, but it is a town road.
Yeah.
If it was a county road, definitely it would be.
Yeah, you'd want to get somebody from the
up-
county
up to
to
the county, they
to
would have
approve.
to approve those.
Exactly. I just
But they
don't think
didn't
there's a
have to.
driveway permit.
But I know
Approval.
there are other driveways in the area that don't meet the requirements of the fire department, the
Right.
fire
But
district.
their grandfather did.
And, yeah, well, some of them aren't even grandfathered in, they just went ahead and did it.
Yeah.
And, it wasn't that long ago, we had a case up the hill off of W when the house burned down because they couldn't get fire trucks down the lane. They had to run hoses and tankers, and that's why those things exist.
Mhm.
So you're right, I agree with you on those points, but if we're gonna make recommendations, regardless of whether they hold water or not, then I think we should have them written out plainly so the board can
And
review them.
it'll give you guys time to see what my comments are and if you agree with them or disagree with them.
Get off the board.
So how would we do that, Mike? Would you type those up for Lauren to review?
I
Or
would just give her these notes.
and then
she-
Lauren can type it up and then we'll review it, so we table it? And then until,
Well, and then request maybe that Bob be at the meeting,
Yeah, I think,
so he can answer
I've
questions.
said this before.
I mean, he was at last night's meeting.
I've said this before many times. When people make an application to the board.
Yeah.
For whatever it is, I think they should show up in person. I don't care if it's for a liquor license or whatever. Frankly, I think people applying for operator's license ought to appear before somebody.
Yeah.
And we've had these things pop up before. So where are we? We don't have anybody to answer our questions. So,
So you gave good reasons. for What you.
Well, there's,
well,
I mean, I've been doing this for a lot of years.
I think that's important to have those reasons in writing, so they can see
Absolutely.
why.
And if they choose not to follow them,
well, we still are on record.
well, would a motion be in order
I'd table it.
to table?
Yes.
Then I move that we table the whatever. Application until you want to set a time certain
We'll just do
next meeting?
Next
the next meet, the next board meeting.
Okay, I move to table the issue until the next regular board meeting.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. So we've got both A and B tabled.
Mhm.
Yep. Okay. So item C, consideration discussion use of building sinking fund for village hall interior painting. It's on 55 in your packet.
Yep.
55.
Yep, we got a quote. We've been talking about this for a while. We'd like to paint this room, my office, and one room in Kelsey's office. The quote came in at 700 and we figure another 300 for the paint. So it'd be a total of $1,000. We'd like to use building sinking fund to do that. I don't think these walls have been painted in quite a long time, so just be a nice way to freshen things up. Yeah, happy to answer your question.
Have you looked at the cost of paint?
We have some paint, so
We
I
have
would
some,
have
yeah.
preface this by saying we painted my office, and by we, I mean Joe painted my office, and then we hired Deanna's office to be painted. And we had paint purchased from that, and we have some still,
And we don't have to primer.
Okay,
yeah, so.
Well,
we-
that's
we do
expensive.
have some, Yeah,
So you're gonna have to find the one with the north wall of Chelsea,
why,
because it's white.
yeah,
If you're gonna use the same blue,
yeah,
I painted that blue.
yeah,
There's 6 coats of blue on that wall with the primer.
yeah,
So I'm telling you, if you got white paint behind it, good luck.
right, but the primer will be white too.
Who's no, I painted it, I know.
Oh, right, but
Sarah
I no idea.
Bankman,
Do we know her? I'm on.
She did Deanna's office.
Yeah,
They
she's
advertise.
in Deanna's office. She's
told
pretty
myself.
good.
Yeah, I think that's a steal.
Yeah.
Yeah, you live in New Glarus or?
Yeah, I think she's in Monticello. She was recommended
that's
by.
a very good, that's a good price.
I
but
think
I,
so.
I think you're a little light on the paint cost.
Yeah, I mean, we have a bunch in Joe's office.
Definitely going up, but if you start buying it in 5 gallon containers, like my Sherman-Williams, it's like
Your dad's hard.
$170 for 5 gallons.
I should also add that the paint
Yeah,
that we
you would, yeah, you would.
the paint that we were buying or that we bought for out here, we just got at the hardware store in town, so
Yeah.
it's not necessarily
Let-
current
Right.
quality, but just because we.
Yeah.
And I don't,
Tell her that.
I don't see anything in this quote. Do you know what type? Is it like a flat paint? Is it an eggshell?
We buy the paint, so there's nothing in the quote about the actual paint, she's just doing the paint.
And you have
And then we, yeah, so she is,
Oh,
It's a good price.
We
That's
had
a steal.
That's an absolute
Yeah.
steal.
They said,
That's what I'm
buy
like, all right.
sure.
Yeah.
hey,
yes,
One.
want subcontract?
yeah.
There you go.
I got a new kid.
Yeah, I saw you all.
Like 40-some thousand in there, I think.
So do you need a motion for
Yes, I'm
approval?
gonna make a motion that we use building sinking fund for the village voluntary painting of
Paint primer
$1,000.
together.
Second,
Well,
I gotta second something tonight.
Yeah, motion in the second. All in favor, say aye.
I,
Opposed, motion carries. Okay, item 6. Public Works and Public Safety, consideration, discussion, request for a street light on Second Avenue.
Yeah,
didn't have a meeting, there wasn't anyone there but Jeff and Lauren and Joe and myself, but we had a discussion on this and it was, we didn't vote on anything that we discussed and it, was recommended by both that it is a very dark area.
Very dark past our house.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Requested
All the way
by,
to the next sixth
One of the
street
rest-
is
yeah, one
not a
or,
street light.
and there's a box there, right, Joe? So we can just hook up easily.
Oh, good, good.
the total cost is $14.50.
Bring some
FYI,
to
so
my
that
neighborhood.
will have to be paid for through the village. And then the utility installs it.
14.
1,400, yep. So we'd probably just take that out of general fund budget. Yeah, it's not why there's a cost to putting up streetlights.
I went past there, so I'm gonna make a motion. I think it's a good idea.
That's
To,
For the streetlight.
okay, we have a motion in the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item B, consideration, discussion, downtown watering agreement.
We've had this for a couple of years now with the chamber. The chamber pays us, to have our staff water the downtown planters twice a week during the summer. The one change to this agreement is they're moving it up 2 weeks. So it used to be like mid-May, now it's earlier May. So we calculated how much more that would be and added that into the total agreement. Other than that, it's pretty much the same.
Make the motion to approve.
second.
We have a motion in second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item C, consideration, discussion, mailbox replacement policy. That's on page 59.
So I stole this from the city of Sun Prairie. But it's definitely nice to have a policy because we do tend, once in a while, we hit a mailbox. And it's good to have kind of criteria of will we replace it or not. we don't want to replace mailboxes that are leaning over into the street.
Nope.
So I included a diagram that shows exactly where mailboxes should be located, and that's based off of USPS regulations. This policy would, if it's determined that it is eligible to be replaced, would replace it with a standard mailbox or reimburse the property owner to $100 for their own, whatever sign mailbox they want.
I think you need to change that, because I went through this when I got my mailbox moved. The Post office in New Glarus requires that oversize. You have to have an oversized mailbox, and they said they really won't deliver mail.
Hmm.
When I put in a new one, it's like you drive by my house, you'll see how big it is. But I had to put in, the standard mailbox is not acceptable anymore for mail service in the village of New
For
Glarus.
packages, it's the same in Washington Township, it's
Yep.
the same in Monticello.
So
You gotta have this big old mailbox.
Just go regular black ones, don't. work.
those standard are not acceptable. You
Well,
have-
they're grandfathered in there.
If you have them, but if you go to replace
If you
them,
have to replace them,
Oh, yeah, go right there.
and that's why I think you need to update the language, just go down to the post office. They'll have a diagram, and they have the USPS technical name for the type of mailbox. Otherwise, I can look it up, because I got it on Amazon, I think.
So all those mailboxes, Chuck, by your house, those four are all standard.
They're not mine, I don't care.
Yeah, I know,
I
but
still pay for mine so that I
Yeah.
can meet you at the post office.
Yeah.
You and Kelsey.
I was gonna say, who do you really care who's there?
Yeah.
Well, I don't, how on the earth can the Glarus post office override the?
Well, they're
United States
doing
Postal
that,
Service?
they're doing that
It's
everywhere.
everywhere, I think it is the
Yeah.
United States Postal Service.
Yeah, I had a mailbox put,
Yeah,
yeah,
my neighbor was very
Yeah.
upset when we
Isn't
installed
that
this
what we
fancy
got?
mailbox, and had to figure it out.
Federal post office?
yeah, even that, where I had my cabin, I had to put in those oversized mailbox.
And it's because of like all the packages now.
Yep, yep.
Hmm.
Cause they don't wanna get out of the car and walk to the front door and
Yeah.
set it up.
Oh, and they were having like claims of like yard damage and stuff.
Yep.
I heard this whole rant from my neighbor about it, so
If you have to replace them, they'll make you use.
How big is this thing?
big.
It's
I could
almost,
fit like.
almost
a
twice as
whole day
big.
of package delivery on it.
Well, drive by my house, Chuck, and you'll see that's the size minimum required.
Okay.
Oh, for sure, yeah. I
Mike,
could fit my one.
do you
year-old
think
in it.
$100 then is enough, or how much?
I'll have to look and see what I paid. I think it was like 125. But that's the mounting, cause you have to have a mounting post to go on them. That's including the 125 or 150.
Yeah,
Mailboxes
I
are
mean,
expensive.
maybe.
I would say 150
Okay.
to be safe. Kelsey's probably looking it up right now.
Yeah, so there's these, I mean, there's some on Amazon for 175.
Oh, there you go.
Expensive.
Just out of curiosity, when you guys do hit a mailbox, do you just knock the post over or do you wreck the whole thing?
Depends on how bad, no, it all depends on how bad it is. We've hit them before where they're leaning into the road.
Yeah.
And we never touch it with a plow or a truck. It's the snow coming off that takes them out.
Yeah.
And like the one, it was all rusted off on the bottom, so it literally snapped it off. The other one was in the road, and when we hit the top of it, we knocked the box together and put it off into the rhubarb, but really, that's not our problem because it's over the face of the
Yeah.
curb.
Yeah.
And these people go crazy. And this year, the snow took one out of an oversized right beside your house.
I think I saw that, yeah.
And I was like, that's not our problem because it's the snow that hits it and it doesn't hold together because they're plastic, they're junk.
Yeah.
So in-
You're not gonna knock mine over.
In
I
the
got concrete
ordinance,
and steel.
does
Oh,
the
don't say that.
snowplow have to come in contact?
Yeah, so snow falling on it does not count.
Yeah.
Snow moving up against it, it has to come in.
So you need to make sure your mailbox is sturdy and not, rusted or whatever.
As long as that's.
Never mind.
That was
But
one metal one.
the wood
So you
safety
pass
is
this one,
a bad
it's
thing.
$200, just for the actual.
Yeah, like the old people was like a 5 gallon bucket.
Like 150. or 174?
I guess my question is, do we have to replace it? And
Oh,
if
you
they
go
had
up
a
and
metal
check
one,
it.
we have to buy a metal one, or is it?
No,
is there-
we would establish a standard one that we
Right.
would give
My
them,
post is-
or we would reimburse them up to a certain
Yeah, I got
amount.
it
So I think we would
from
just
the
want to
written,
think like,
Yeah, I feel like
They
150 is more
I
than
would
fair
think-
for,
Yeah,
because they could buy a cheaper plastic one.
I'm glad it goes.
okay,
Lauren, I would think we would want to start reimbursing them because the hardware store down here doesn't carry those oversized.
No,
They only have
I think they do.
boxes.
right,
Yeah.
And that means we're traveling, going to get someplace to get them.
so we,
Or we would have to order them on Amazon and here and then put them up,
So we should tell the hardware store in town,
stock them.
yeah, they should be stocked.
yeah, it's up to the village board. I mean, we could just reimburse people up to a certain amount and let them get their own mailbox.
would you have to replace them as well, or you would have to put it up and all?
Yeah, we would actually build a 4x4s that was designed on that picture that you see.
And then
And
charge
we would
them,
put 'em in, well,
no,
because we hit it. Now, if it was a legit hit that we hit,
Right.
because the plow jumped up on the
Right.
curb, we hit it.
but they would have to buy the,
But we fix it ourselves.
okay. So I think a reimbursement is probably best.
And just get out of the business of replacing it for them.
My
Yeah,
question to that is,
It's more-
what do you do with somebody that's
elderly.
at 80+ years old?
Right.
Yeah.
well, we can help them along, I'm sure. I mean, I would just want to not complicate your lives. But if it's, we could certainly,
But it's not like the old days when you can hire people to do this
Right.
for you, because nobody does this anymore.
but you would help. You would do that, correct?
If we hit it, it's our hit,
Okay.
yes.
And I also think we need to have like very
I think we
clear,
should
because
have
if we do
good
it for
policy.
one person, just like we heard with the
Yes.
ETV conversation, well, you did it
Yes.
one time, so.
I think this policy is a good idea.
Yeah, and it specifies in there, it's gotta be in good shape.
Yeah.
If it's rusted at the bottom, it tips over with snow. Yeah,
Your biggest thing that, and seriously, as board members, you should really just drive around town once
Yeah.
and look at where the post boxes are
Yeah.
to the face of the curb. And if there's, I'm just gonna use a number, but if there's 300 mailboxes out there, I'm gonna say 260 are non-compliant.
I was walking Second Street today in a gutter. Mailbox was sticking out over the gutter.
Yeah.
Right out
So-
the road. I said, "What the-"
I didn't read that whole thing through. Is there
Anyway,
if the village knocks out a mailbox that was in non-conformance, do we offer to replace it on a time and
No.
expense basis?
no.
No, it has to be in.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's-
Well, I didn't know.
That's up to the post office. I mean,
Well-
if you have a non-conforming,
Well, I'm saying if it's leaning or whatever.
then it should be up to them to say, well, we're not gonna deliver to that
Well-
box, because you don't.
But here's what we were looking at is, once we got this established here, that we passed this, then what I'd like to do is go down to our postmaster. And then maybe in our utility bills, we'll put it all out as one shot, but we want them to have something in there too, saying, you're non-compliant, they will not replace this because your mailbox does not
Absolutely.
meet compliance.
That would be.
We got
That
yellow
would be a good
flyers in
idea.
our mail last year for anybody that did not have the big box in the right spot. We all got yellow flyers saying, we are not gonna deliver your mail until you fix this. My brother lives in Monticello and got the same
Yeah.
thing.
That might be
I think
a
it's
bad
good.
idea.
Sounds
And
like,
that's the only way we can
sounds like.
Yeah.
get them on board with us.
I think that's a good plan.
Last sentence under criteria.
Mhm.
Says we won't replace them if it's snow that knocks them over and breaks.
Correct.
It has to come in contact.
And
has to be
the whole reason that is, the one time, just for FYI, when the snow is compactable, there's times that we're plowing the road and you can actually see it in the truck or in the loader, that 20 feet ahead of you, the snow is actually just build up, build up, build up, build up. And you gotta shake the plow and then all of a sudden it's like, well, here it goes. And you. Yeah, but that's sometimes that happens. There's nothing we.
Well, and when you're plowing flush,
Yeah, it's coming off. It's just.
That's heavy.
that would take a lot of things out.
Yeah, it's heavy.
Well, let's have a motion.
Well, do we,
Do we want to make a,
I thought we were in agreement with the what Lauren had put together.
Yeah, well, you gotta revise the language. It's not a standard mailbox. It's a.
Oh.
So I guess I want to just clarify, because we went a little bit back and forth on whether Joe would replace it for someone. We could we could create our own standard of what we would replace, which would be the oversized, and we could find one on Amazon or something that we would do. And Joe maybe would replace it, or we would reimburse a property owner and they would have to do it. Is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be a
So
good
we'd
call.
set, and we'd set a standard, it's 150, so
Yeah,
that's what they get, whatever it is.
And that's the homeowner's choice. how they
that's,
want.
and they have to install it and do everything. So I think that's fair.
Yeah,
My only question with that is if we're reimbursing them, I'm guessing that'll be a check, we're cutting a check, so that reimbursement will just have to, if this happens. Well, it's not an instant, I can't cut them a check, the day after, so it'll have to go through personal finance.
We'll have to submit.
well,
it to
what,
us.
what you can do.
Well, we
is-
won't need a receipt, will they, if we hit it?
Well, it's gonna be, we're not gonna reimburse them more than what they paid.
Oh.
Right, I
Up
would
to
say
150.
up to $200, provide a proof receipt, and then they'll drive by and make sure it's in compliance, and upon the post office saying it's okay, then we'll cut you a check for what you spent up to $200. And that would be the post and the mounting gear and the mailbox. That's what I would do, because then it forces them to use that reimbursable for what it's intended, and we have proof that it's okay with the USPS.
That's the only way we could control it.
Yep,
Yeah.
and then they get their check.
Is $200 too much, or is it,
Not, but I mean, you said it was 175 by the time
that was a, yeah, it was a
you
metal,
figure in the
metal modern one.
well,
Well, listen, if that's gonna bring us, up to.
Right,
up to.
I'm fine, I just want to, obviously, this all comes out of an unbudgeted.
What if it's,
So what, it's not gonna happen that often.
What is your box cost?
I would say by the time I got the post and everything.
No, I mean, just a box.
I'd have to look again. I think it was over, well over $100.
Yeah, cause I think the one, the standard.
But I didn't get the cheap plastic. I got a metal mailbox and a metal post. Cause I don't wanna, I mean, you can see the one at 609th Avenue. I put that in 2006 and it's still
Still there.
straight as an arrow.
Well, something worked.
Thanks.
So
Okay, so
$200, is that what the?
Up to,
up to,
up to.
and they still,
If it's over,
they're
they
gonna
got
have
it.
to.
Cause the price is gonna go up. I mean, year to year.
and they will have to bring in receipts,
Yep.
correct?
Including for labor, would that be included in the 200, if they hire
But-
somebody to put this in?
But if they say,
I don't care what they do.
yeah. if
Yeah.
you get
Up to $200,
Right.
however you put it in, it gets passed.
Okay.
But
Yeah, I
do they-
just make sure it's super clear, because I'll be the one
Yeah.
looking at it, so.
But do they have are we giving them the option of having Joe's crew?
Yeah, only if they choose to take what we would provide,
They should be like.
Joe can
yeah.
put it in for them.
Okay, so that's.
We also, we could repair one too, right, Joe? No.
like,
Yeah.
They're not serious because we've had them go off. We've literally gone over and put them back onto the plastic
Mm.
Yeah.
and they think it's all bad and it's not. But then the next one, they've been in the sun for so long and when they hit the plastic just
Yeah.
because it's cold, it's,
Yeah.
12 degrees out or 2 degrees out and it just shatters.
Yeah.
But this is, knowing this, I didn't know that about those mailboxes.
Yeah.
So what we need to do then is get on Amazon and we order a mailbox like that. We put it in the shop, we put a post with it. So in case this happens, we can go right out because we don't like to have somebody not without a mailbox.
Yes, yeah.
Right.
For a week, yeah.
If I can find what I had, I'll send it to Lauren or something and we can let you know. Otherwise, just go
Otherwise,
down.
I'll just go down to the post office.
Yep, and they've got an actual diagram and a name and.
We've got guys that walk by here every day that go to the post office.
Well, and I think too, the only thing that we should remember, we're supplying one is that we choose one that we can easily get, so we're not buying a nice metal one time, and then the next time we're giving
Just stick
somebody a
to it.
plastic one, I think we should stick to a basic plastic black model,
Plastic?
Plastic.
or whatever.
Plastic.
Well, whatever we choose to do, we just have, I know we don't plan on this happening often, but
No plastic.
if for some
I don't-
reason,
I don't like plastic.
yeah.
I would do the
When
metal.
it shatters,
But
Okay, got it.
So if you need a motion approving that with the revisions discussed. I guess I would make that motion.
So to approve the policy with the revisions discussed.
Yep. And up to the $200 amount.
Which is, would be included in the revisions.
Yep.
Yep, I got it.
Did anybody second yet?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Okay, Parks and Rec, consideration discussion 2024 portable restroom vendor. When we talked today, Chuck, I had my numbers flipped around.
Yeah, you did.
I thought Bullseye was more expensive than Monson, but it's the other way around.
Yeah.
So,
Jeff, do you want to take this or do you want me?
Go ahead.
Okay, we got quotes from two vendors, Momsen and Bullseye. Bullseye came in less at $6,550.50. We had Momsen last year. They were
substandard.
okay, yeah, they didn't respond, during a weekend when one of our porta potties got pushed over. So we thought, let's go out and see what else we can get, and it turns out Bullseye is actually cheaper. Joe didn't have any concerns about Bullseye. So I think the Parks and Rec Committee recommended move forward with
Yeah.
Bullseye, and I'll add Bullseye, you can schedule
Yeah.
additional cleanings, so we probably schedule a few like during festival weekends.
Yeah,
That was both offered.
That's what we
Yeah.
talked about, making sure that the additional coverage was scheduled
Yep.
for like Oktoberfest and.
Yep, so what we'll probably do, whoever we choose, both of them offered the service. What we would probably do is I would then send them our festival schedule. And then also the Bombers tournament that happens back here, that was a hot spot last year. And then just make sure, both of them said if they had that ahead of time, they had no problem.
Okay.
And they would only obviously charge us for the one restroom or whatever, that they wouldn't charge us for all six,
So they'd inspect them though and see which ones are full and needed to be empty. And if they need to be emptied, we'd be charged.
No, what they agreed to do is if we told them that there was a ball tournament going on at Glarner, they would come to Glarner, but they weren't gonna go check all the other
Oh.
6 of them.
Gotcha.
If
I
we
suppose that
wanted,
makes sense.
if
Yeah.
we wanted weekly service, Bullseye she did not wanna give me a weekly service because she didn't think that was necessary. Munson gave me both weekly, bi-weekly, and then both of them said that they would do like drop-ins at certain ones, but it would be from us telling them.
Yeah.
So basically, they both agree that they just don't have the staff or the time to keep track of, so.
We've had Bullseye before with no problems,
That's what you said, yeah.
so
And if they're gonna come out, be more responsive.
I think they
That's the way to
definitely
go.
well, and they'll do, en route.
Well, and
Yeah, I
the
did
difference, the
ask-
difference in cost will
Yeah.
cover our additional festival weekends.
And I did ask both of them about emergency weekend, and neither of them have, well, we know Munson doesn't, that hasn't changed. Bullseye doesn't either, but she said she would get to it when she could, so.
And I wanna make sure, Chuck had mentioned something getting tipped over once.
Yep.
And I wanna make sure Bullseye will respond to that.
I flat out asked her,
Okay,
and she said they don't offer like 24-hour, get there, but they will get there when they can.
Yeah.
Now, is that gonna be any different than the response we got this last summer? I don't know.
I think it would be,
Yeah.
because we've had them before and
Yep.
they have.
Yeah,
And
she
I
didn't
think
say she
they're-
wouldn't, but I just wanna be very
Yeah.
upfront with the board that she didn't guarantee to be there on a Sunday afternoon either.
Their,
said she
their statement here that includes emergency service,
Mhm.
minor vandalism, done in the timeliest manner.
Yep.
And based on past, performance, I trust them to not let it go 4 or 5 days, like,
well, I would say 24 to 48 hours would be a reasonable
yeah,
response.
I'm
Yeah.
sure they would. They have before, they have in the past.
I mean, I would think that's reasonable.
And you never know, these things tend to occur on festival weekends. when
And the other thing to
everybody's
note,
figured out.
that's different this year than last year, is we've included 6 for the full season. Last year it was 5, and then we added the one at Village Park halfway through. So that's why the costs are a little bit more this year, because we have 6 for the full season.
I don't know, I like.
Well, I guess if you need a motion to approve the bills, I would make that motion.
A second.
Okay, motion and a second, all in favor, say aye.
All right,
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. President's report, consideration, discussion, reschedule April 2nd, 2024 village board meeting to, are we looking at Wednesday, the 3rd then?
I think that's what we.
Yeah, we have the
prefer.
election on the 2nd, spring election is gonna be very busy. Prefer to reschedule if possible.
And is it good enough to get the act together by the 3rd, or we move to the Thursday?
Yeah, no, the 3rd is fine. It's more so just so I can be here. You know, I don't have to worry about being too missed at once.
so the 3rd is what you're proposing?
Yeah, if that
I will
works.
meet.
Motion.
Same time.
Yeah. How about we reschedule the April 2nd meeting to April 3rd, 2024?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
All right.
Aye. Opposed, motion carried. Anything else from the board? Hearing none, we are adjourned.